Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our first session in the State Senator Ram Villivalam Virtual Job Fair Series. Today, we will be hearing from three presenters who will be conducting job seeker workshops to help familiarize you with the skills that you will need to be successful in the virtual hiring space. Our first two presenters will speak for approximately 30 minutes each to give you some information about how to create an elevator speech and how to work a virtual job fair. Our final presenter will provide an overview of the state's hiring process and how to position yourself as a competitive applicant. If you have questions at any time, please type them into the chat and we will address them during brief Q&A sessions that will be taking place after each presentation. If you have not already, please be sure to register for Wednesday's informational session with employers and Friday's breakout room session where you will have an opportunity to communicate directly with employer representatives. A link to the registration page will be provided in the chat. Please note, you will need to be sure to register for each session individually. Today's session is being recorded and will be made available in the employer booths for you to refer to later. Now, I am pleased to introduce State Senator Ram Villivalam. Senator.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ram Villivalam. I'm the state senator for the 8th District, as was mentioned, which covers 21 neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, from Albany Park to West Rogers Park, essentially, and then about 5 suburbs in Cook County: Lincolnwood, Skokie, Niles, Morton Grove, Glenview, and unincorporated Des Plaines. I hope everyone and their families are staying safe and healthy. It is certainly good to be here with you all today. Since the beginning of the pandemic, there's no question that we've faced unprecedented challenges and really an unprecedented time. And part of that has been the loss of employment, folks experiencing unemployment, and being able to access jobs as we move forward. Those are the two issues that we've heard the most about in our office. My team and I have handled close to or worked with or around 750, I should say, folks that are experiencing unemployment, trying to make sure that they have access to community resources, whether it's food or medication or whatever it is, housing, but also doing our best to make sure that folks are able to get through to IDES, which has been, a huge challenge. And so we've tried our best to help with that. For the most part, at least at some point, we're able to make some breakthroughs, and we're going to continue that work. While we help folks with benefits and resources in the community, I wanted to make sure that we were helping on the other front, which is searching for a job in this new quote unquote normal that we have. And we wanted to take a holistic approach. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't just, a bunch of employers, handing out information sheets. We wanted to make sure that you had the chance to, learn about some soft skills, have some info sessions on the jobs that are available, and actually have interviews. Give you all the opportunity to make your pitch in an interview. So, that's really, what it comes down to in terms of the multi-day event that we have here. First the soft skills, second the info session, third the interviews. And if I'm wrong on any of that, obviously folks can, the experts can correct me. But for those of you that are with me today or with us today, I'm glad you're here. Please don't hesitate to reach out to my office and if we can be helpful. Allie, my chief of staff, is dropping our information in the chat right now. And there's still time to sign up for the other days of this event on Wednesday, February 3rd for the info sessions, and Friday, February 5th for group interviews, excuse me. So please please sign up. Please encourage anyone to sign up. This is kind of a new way of doing a job fair, given the challenges that we're experiencing in terms of not being able to gather in person. And so a lot of work has gone into this. And so hopefully folks can utilize this to find a job. I want to take a moment to thank the experts and the employers who are with us today and the next few days. A big thank you to our partners in putting this virtual job fair together. Representative D'Amico, Representative Stoneback, the Illinois Department of Employment Security, the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, the Northside American Job Center, and the North Suburban Cook County American Job Center. They've done a lot of work to get this to a place where we can have an event today. I think Ali mentioned or was mentioned that 192 people have signed up for today alone, and so we definitely want to make sure you get the best of it, and we want to make sure that you know of the opportunities that exist and are able to interview for them. And so with that, I don't want to waste any more time. Would like to hand it over to Lynn Jeffords from BCS to kick things off. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So welcome to today's presentation on creating an effective elevator speech. If you have any questions, please enter them in chat and we'll try to address them at the end. Now, you may be familiar with the elevator pitch from shows like Shark Tank, where entrepreneurs try to sell their innovative product ideas to investors. Well, the term elevator pitch started out as slang to describe a speech that could be delivered in a short period of an elevator ride. Now, an elevator pitch or elevator speech can also be used to sell you to prospective employers. It succinctly communicates your strengths, skills, and experiences. It gives just enough info so the person you're speaking with will want to learn more about you. Now, creating an elevator speech sounds like a daunting task, but it's really very easy using our online template. Regardless of your age or experience, you can create an elevator speech. Next slide, please. So when should you use an elevator speech? Actually, you can use it anytime you want to meet someone new and want to introduce yourself. In the context for this event, we're focusing on an elevator speech you'll use in virtual scenarios, like job fairs, networking events, and interviews. My favorite reason for having a prepared elevator speech is so when an interviewer says, "So tell me about yourself," I'm ready with a polished answer. It gives a powerful first impression. Realize, though, that your elevator speech is not one size fits all. Once you've crafted your elevator speech, you want to make copies of it and modify those copies for different situations. Next slide. So there are 4 elements to your elevator speech. I recommend breaking out your pen and paper right now to jot down ideas that come to you as we go through these steps. The first element to your speech is your basic information, your name, occupation, and specialization. Your specialization is what you're particularly good at. Second is a brief statement highlighting something about you. Often this will be your key specialties or strengths or your work experience. If you've recently earned a professional or vocational certificate or academic degree, you might want to highlight that. Next slide. Third, consider what value you bring. Put yourself in the listener's seat. What makes you so special? If you're interviewing, what differentiates you from other candidates applying for this position? If you're at a job fair, what makes you stand out in your field? Finally is your call to action. What do you want to have happen next? For example, you might ask, would you be comfortable referring me for this job? Or if you learn about any software development positions that might be opening up in your company, would you please let me know? And always, always personalize this by mentioning the company or organization's name. Don't just say your company. It shows due diligence when you're talking to someone that you know where they work. Or if you have any insights about this industry, would you be able to meet with me briefly next week? And again, specify the industry. It knows what shows what you're talking about. Next slide. So this is an example of a concise elevator speech that was created using our online template. It covers the 4 elements we just discussed. Notice that the optimal length of your elevator speech should be about 500 characters. In time, this equates to about 30 seconds, the time it takes to ride an elevator. If your elevator speech is longer than 30 seconds, you will lose your audience. As you drone on, in their head, they'll be saying, all right, get to the point. What do you want from me? So make it short. Make it short, sweet, and memorable. Now, you could create your elevator speech from scratch using a blank sheet of paper and following the 4 steps outlined in the last couple of slides, or you could use our guided template. Personally, I think it's easier to use a template, a blank sheet of paper in front of me. I never know where to start. Next slide. So here we will walk through the elevator speech template to show you how easy it is. You can find the URL in chat. Please click it and bookmark it so you can use it later. As we go through each section of the template, write down some ideas on your paper. They don't have to be full sentences right now, just some key thoughts or words that you will use later. Next slide. Once you click the link in chat, you'll land on the entry page for the template. From here, just scroll down and enter information in each field. Next slide. What's great about this template is that it prompts you to answer questions about yourself. Note that as we enter info in each field, now we're using complete sentences. So here we have who you are, your occupation, and what you're good at. And these are all short fields to enter. Next slide. These 2 boxes are the ones in which you'll really promote yourself. What accomplishments and skills distinguish you from others in your field? Each text box shows you how many characters you're able to enter for that field and how many you've already entered. You may have noticed that the total number of characters allowed in the fields we've seen so far is already over 600. But wait, earlier I told you that your elevator speech should be no longer than 500 characters. What? So what's this about? Well, don't think you've got to use the maximum number of characters in each field. If you do, your speech will be longer than 30 seconds and I'll be bored listening to it. So everyone will be different. You may want to put a little bit more into describing why you're the best, while I want to focus on what I do, what my accomplishments have been. This template gives you the flexibility to highlight what you consider important, but also makes sure you don't ramble. Next slide. So finally is your call to action, what you want to have happen next as a result of your interaction. And once you're done entering all the good stuff you've put in, you have the option to get a copy of your elevator speech emailed to you. Do it. That way you can take what you've created and copy it into Microsoft Word or Google Docs and refine it. And once you're done, click Submit. Next slide. So in addition to getting a copy of your elevator speech and email, you'll also see the instant results on your screen. Simply put, it's a paragraph combining all the sentences you entered above. Now keep in mind that this is just your first draft. You will need to modify it. Because the template just links sentences together, the results may not necessarily flow smoothly. For example, I'd combine the second and third sentences of this speech to say, as a project manager for XYZ maintenance company, I specialize in finding ways to reduce stockroom inventory waste. Instead of having those 2 sentences that look choppy. However you decide to modify or tweak your speech, you just need to make sure the speech sounds right for you. This is your speech. You'll also want to create different copies for different contexts. Your call to action will be different during an interview than at a virtual networking event. But once you've got the knack of creating an elevator speech, you can create one for any occasion. Next slide. So creating and refining your elevator speech are really just the beginning. Next, you need to practice, practice, practice. Your elevator speech needs to sound natural, not like something you're reading off an index card. And don't practice in your head. That does not count. You have to say it out loud. Yes, it will really feel awkward at first, but just get used to it. Practice in the bathroom every morning. Record yourself using your camera on your phone or computer. Learn to give your elevator speech with a smile on your face. You want to exude confidence when delivering it. Find ways to practice your elevator speech with family and friends. Heck, they may even be able to give you feedback to improve your speech. And now the next time you meet someone new, you'll be prepared to confidently introduce yourself. Next slide. So if you're interested in an expanded version of this presentation, feel free to register for our 1-hour-long workshop that will be held on February 11th, 10 days from today. See the link in chat. Personally, I suggest that you try using the template to create the first draft of your elevator speech, then come to our February 11th presentation and we can help you critique and improvement. We're here to help you. Next slide. So thank you for your time today. We hope you find the elevator speech template helpful in your job search. And I think we've got time for questions, if there are any.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Lynn. I'll go ahead and go through the chat section here, and we'll go ahead and just briefly give you an opportunity to address any of the questions that were posed by job seekers. So we got a question in the chat here, and I don't know how relevant it is exactly to your presentation, but perhaps you can provide a little bit of insight. Is there any help with resume writing available to job seekers that you are aware of?
Yes, BCS has a workshop on creating your resume. If you just go to, there should be in the chat a link to all of the workshops that BCS puts on. You can find it there.
And then thank you for that, Lynn. And just to elaborate on the resource that Lynn provided there, we also have a resume writing tool and guide on Illinois WorkNet. My colleague David Garvey has also posted that in the chat section as well. So as you can see, there's multiple resources available to you in that regard. Please feel free to search those on your own time and accord, and hopefully you will be able to gain the insight and advice that you are looking for. And taking a look here, Lynn, looks like we got an additional question. This individual asked, based on what you were saying, is an elevator speech a verbal version of a cover letter? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I don't think it is. Your cover letter, your elevator speech is, I don't want to say generic, but it really highlights some things about you. Your cover letter often talks about how you can benefit a particular company. Unless you're really going to create an elevator speech that's targeted to a particular company, you really want to talk about generally what your skills are. So someone can then ask you for more information.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Lynn. We do have another question in the chat. This individual asks, how do you modify your elevator speech if trying to enter a new field?
I think we'll go over that during our workshop, our longer workshop. But yes, it is not uncommon that you've been in one field, but see, we've also got a workshop on transferable skills. And that's where you can identify what your transferable skills are and then focus on them in your elevator speech. So yeah, we've got in BCS, we've got a fair number of workshops that can help you in various aspects of your job search. And I'd really recommend checking them out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lynn. Another question that we have, what should you not do in an elevator pitch?
Oh, what should you not do?
Hey, this is Terry. I recommend going to the more detailed workshop because there's a lot of things that we could list here, right? Unless, Lynn, there's like two big ones you want to say.
No, if you've got something to say, Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was just going to say there is a list, but one of the things, you don't want to start from, the day you were born or the day you graduated from high school, unless that's relevant. So I think what Lynn was talking about, being really concise about who you are, what you want to do, and an action item. And that gives you about 30 seconds, and there's no room for adding additional things.
Fantastic. Thank you both for that. And I just do want to kind of draw your attention to the chat section. BCS will be having a more in-depth or thorough workshop on this exact topic on the 9th of this month at 10:30 a.m. I'm sure they will provide a link in the chat where you will be able to register and or access that event as well. Kind of pivoting back to the questions, Lynn and or Terry, please feel free to respond. Can you give some ideas on how to fill job gaps in an elevator pitch?
Oh, you're not filling job gaps in your elevator pitch. You're basically, in that thing, you're telling someone how great you are. You're not trying to go through your resume and saying, well, I haven't been working for 6 months. No, you're saying, I have these skills. You want me because I have these skills. I've got this experience. I am great. And they're going to go, really? Well, we should talk. That's what your elevator pitch is.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Lynn. And I think we've already had a question kind of in this same vein, but again, this individual asks, any suggestions when your current experience is not the job that you are searching for?
So,
That
yeah,
is,
go ahead.
that's
Lynn.
your transferable skills. Because everyone's got skills that you've learned in various jobs, whether you volunteered someplace, whether you're working, whether you're a parent, you've got skills. What you really want to figure out is, how can I transfer some of these skills to a job? And so I'd really recommend coming to our transferable skills workshop, because then it can help you identify some of these and you can focus on them in your elevator pitch.
Fantastic, thank you. And we do have a kind of general question in the chat that we received. And I believe you did cover this, but perhaps you could go just slightly more in depth about how long should an elevator pitch be?
30 seconds.
Fantastic, thank you.
And I would time it. When you're doing it, time it. If it's too long, figure out how to shorten it a little bit. Because if you go on a little too long, someone's going to be looking, you're standing in front of someone or on Zoom and they're just talking and you're like, what do you want from me? You're just droning on and on telling me all these things, but why? So you want to really want to make it short, sweet, and memorable.
The goal is to get to the next conversation with either the person you're talking to or someone they know that's going to be able to get you to a job opportunity.
Fantastic, thank you both. And we did receive another question in the chats. This individual asks, do we have to adapt our elevator speech based on what job or what company we are looking for a job, or should it just remain more generalized?
It depends on what skills that the job is asking for. If you've got an elevator pitch that talks about some skills you've got, and this job you're looking for really wants something else, you may want to tweak your elevator pitch to focus on something else, to focus on what that job wants. But yet, you will want different elevator pitches for different situations, different types of jobs you might want, if you're very flexible.
Awesome, thank you for that, Lynn. And I just do want to reiterate, if any of the job seekers on the call here do have any questions for Lynn regarding the elevator pitch presentation, please feel free to enter those into the chat and we will get those answered for you. Now is a prime time to do so. Again, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to enter those into the chat. We'll go ahead and just give a few more seconds here. If we don't receive any more questions, Lynn, we will transition into the how to work a virtual job fair presentation with Terry. We did receive one additional question. This individual asks, is there a different type of elevator pitch for a federal government job?
I don't think so.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Another question in the chat that we received as well. This individual asks, does an elevator pitch, is it the right answer to the tell me about yourself question? So
Yes.
I'm assuming what this individual is saying is it comparable to that question?
Yes. I don't know how many times people have gone to an interview, you're asked, tell me about yourself question, and you sit there and you go, and you don't know what to say. And you just start saying something and you're just rambling on because you don't know where to quit. This gives you something nice and short and sweet to talk about. And then once you're done, your interviewer can go on and say, okay, that's great. Okay, so then they may ask you another targeted question.
Awesome, thank you, Lynn. And again, I just want to tell everyone before we transition into our next presentation, again, if you do have any questions specific to Lynn and the presentation on giving an elevator pitch, please feel free to enter those in the chat. Now is a prime time to get those answered while we still have Lynn on the line. Give that a few seconds, Lynn. If we don't receive any additional questions, we'll go ahead and transition to our next presentation. We did get a question, more generalized, Lynn. Can we get a PDF of the slide presentation? I don't know if your organization would be able to disclose that or not, or if you'd be the individual to direct that question to, but give you an opportunity to answer that.
I don't think so, but most of what we did here is on the elevator pitch website.
Fantastic. And at this point, I believe we can go ahead and transition into our next presentation. Lynn, thank you so much for that wonderful and informative presentation on giving an elevator pitch. If you do have any additional questions regarding this presentation or any questions for Lynn, please enter those into the chat even while our next presenter is presenting. And I'm sure that the folks at BCS would be more than happy to answer those for you. Lynn, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Terry Guzowski, and Terry is going to present on how to work a virtual job fair. Terry, are you available to present?
I am. Thank you, Daniel. If we go to the next slide. Welcome. My name again is Terry Guzowski, and I am going over how to work a virtual job fair over the next 16 slides. We'll provide you on how to prepare, what to do during the job fair, and after the job fair. 3 components, all very important. So let's get started. Next slide, please. What is a virtual job fair? It is it's like a traditional in-person job fair where employers and job seekers meet to discuss employment opportunities, but it's virtual, just like today's event. It can be interactive, and it can also be static, where you're just uploading resumes directly to talent recruiters and hiring managers. Thank you. So we put together 11 steps. It sounds like a lot, but you're probably already doing these steps. So let's get started on the first planning and preparation steps is to look for and identify the virtual job fair opportunities that you'd like to go to. Most obvious or useful one that everyone tends to go to is Google, just to search for virtual job fairs in your area or your industry. Another one that's helpful is Indeed. Both of these on the screen right now. And the one that we're highlighting today and this week is the next slide, please, is the gettinghiredillinois.gov. And there'll be some links to this. There's 2 ways to get there. And you get to this screen and you click virtual job fairs. And it will bring you to the events. There'll be 2 places to click. One will say search virtual job fairs. Next slides, please. Next steps would be, once you get to the job fair event that you would like to participate in, is to register. And you will do that online. And once you register, you will see a list of participating employers and interviewers and opportunities for job roles. And you'll want to research that. This is all during planning and preparation. You want to make sure that you have an idea of who's going to be there and what it is you would like to apply to. Next slide. So once you've gone and researched the companies that will be there and you've made your list of who you want to visit and which booths, you want to get set up for that day and that hour. So make sure that you've got a good place to have your virtual event. So clutter-free, no background noises, and a place where you won't be disturbed for 1 to 2 hours. Next slide, please. So moving on to step 5, see, we're plowing through these steps fairly quickly. And again, you're in this virtual environment, you probably got a good space already. But you also want to check your technology and make sure that the equipment is ready a few days prior and then the hour before, because we all know how technology is. Might be working 2 days ago, and then you might have a glitch the day of. So check that Make sure that you have also practiced on the video platform. So if it's Zoom or GoToMeeting or Teams, you know, there's several out there, Google Meets. So you'll get an idea of what you're supposed to be using when you go and do the preparation and see who is going to be at the virtual fair. Also check where your camera is located so that your face is approximately 3/4 of the screen, and make sure that's positioned so that it's almost as like you're in person. Next slide, please. So the other thing you'll want to have handy is as you've gone through the list of opportunities that you're interested in and the companies you're interested in, you want to have handy maybe 1, possibly 2 target resumes, as well as your LinkedIn profile URL. So those are 3 things. In the target resume, we referenced it in the last presentation. Lynn talked about target resumes, and there were some questions about that. The things that will be highlighted in your target resume is possibly different skill sets, especially if you're in some sort of transition from one type of role to another. That's where you will see the differences in those targeted resumes. Your job skills will show relevant jobs for that type of role. The other resume that you want to have handy is the resume for an applicant tracking system search. So if you're uploading to a computerized person or robot in the virtual fair, there is a ATS type format that you should be using to upload your resume. Again, there is a more specialized webinar around the applicant tracking system so that you can understand where you need to change the formats. If you don't have that, it's okay, but it's good to have on hand. Next slide, please. Okay, we're revisiting elevator speech. You want to have that ready also for every booth that you're going to visit. You will be ready because you heard from Lynn that your quick 30-second introduction is where you're going to make your impact to the job interviewer. And that will also be a quick way for you to break the ice and let them know how you can add value to their organization. Also, step 10, interview questions. This is important. And I'm going to do this second bullet first, right? Because we're all familiar with interviewers asking us questions and how we're going to answer them. We practiced those and looked at example questions that might be asked. And we also want to make sure that we have written down how we would answer those. What's your strengths? What's your weaknesses? Those sort of things. And it's important that you have handy how you will answer that with the PARS methodology. And that is, if the interviewer gives you a problem, you're ready to answer it with what actions you took and what results were based on the actions you took. And that will show your problem solving skills and that you are action oriented and shows value. So as an example, say you worked in a contact center and there was a problem of first-time calls taking way too long, and your action was that you figured out a way to reduce that time by, say, asking different questions or whatever it is to your industry. And the results are you reduced first-time call-in for troubleshooting by 50% or 60% or 20%, whatever metric you helped reduce as a part of the action to that problem. So it's really powerful because it shows right off in a short sentence how you operate and where your value is. And then the first bullet, also have a list for your interviewers. That is, you want to show that you have looked at their website, you understand who they are, what they do, and what the role is. And so you can prepare relevant questions to that. Questions to the interviewer as in what are the goals for the company for the year? that you are caring about what the company is. So it's just, or one other relevant question is this an added position or is this a replacement position? Those are also really important questions because it gives it gives you an idea what you're stepping into should you go with this position. So your questions to the interviewer is just as important in collecting information as it is them asking you questions. And this is also an opportunity for you to pick something that will make you stand out. And it may or may not be relative to the position, but you'll want to think of something that you can also use in your follow-up. Next slide, please. Okay, so now you're just about ready to go on camera, and it's important that you get ready with your professional attire as though you were walking into the office or a conference room for this interview. So don't think it's any different because you're at your kitchen table or in your office. You want to make sure that you are have a jacket and are dressed for success. There's some recommendations here around colors. The main thing here is to be sure that you don't blend into your background. So if you have a light background, go darker and vice versa. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a quick recap that you want to make sure that you've performed your last minute tech check. You've got a pen that works, and that might sound funny, but that's happened to me, along with a notepad, and ensure that you've got your target resumes available and your pre-written interview questions. Know your target employers and plan to visit them all and prepare with your prepared elevator pitch. If there are some different opportunities, this is a place where you can have a second elevator pitch if it makes sense and have that written down as well. So you can toggle between the two. Select and search for your employers by booth numbers virtually when you go in there into register. And also you'll want to access your target employer's booth page. So there might be, next slide, please. There may be other resources in the booth where there might be a welcome video that talks about what the employer is, their webinars. There may be networking rooms that you can pop into, and also job seeker workshops. And so you'll find that all when you go into the virtual networking event. I also mentioned that there is some possible, what they call robot, artificial intelligence. Mainly that's chat boxes that are not, that there isn't a person behind, but it's interactive via artificial intelligence using the chat in that way. I'm sure you've used those in maybe some other parts in other areas of unemployment or other items. So those are used sometimes. Just be aware. And next slide, please. Before you leave the fair or the booth or company, make sure you get as much contact information that you can from the employer representative that you met with. Their LinkedIn, email address, if that's available. You want to make sure that after the job fair ends, your second job begins, right? This is really very important because all your efforts of getting ready and preparing and talking will go by the wayside unless you make sure that you follow up with LinkedIn invitations, a thank you note that reminds them who you are and maybe that special thing that you had that you talked about that they will remember you by. You can include that in your thank you note as well. And make sure that everyone you interacted with, if there was a panel and there were 3 people, see if you can get each one of those LinkedIns and connect with each and every one of them individually. Next slide, please. So for additional information on how to work a job fair, there is also another event actually tomorrow morning at 10:30, coincidentally. So if you go into this link, you can get more details and a longer discussion around how to work the virtual job webinar. The registration needs to be done before 6 tonight, but and there are others every month, but I just wanted to make sure that I let you know that today, since it's going to be a busy week for virtual job fairs, and it might be helpful to do additional preparation. And there's also, I don't know if it was in the chat or not, but there's also a target resume on February 9th webinar. And as Daniel said, there's multiple webinars on target resumes, but that one should also be in the chat. So thank you for sticking with me here. And if there's any questions in the chat.
Fantastic. Thank you for that presentation, Terry. And as Terry just stated, if you do have any questions regarding, how to navigate working a virtual job fair, please feel free to enter those into the chat and we'll get those answered for you. First question that I have for you, Terry, this individual asks, how important is LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is the way recruiters contact job seekers, and the follow-up is not exclusive to use LinkedIn. I will say that it is on par with email, phone calls. It's another way to stay in contact with folks and should not be used exclusively, but should not be forgotten in any way. It's very important.
Fantastic. Thank you, Terry. Next question that we have in the chat section here is, what if you don't have a LinkedIn profile? I'm assuming, would you suggest that a prospective job seeker go ahead and create one as soon as possible?
So yes, if you are able, I would create, because this is really replaced a website. It's your personal website. It says it's your 30-second elevator pitch, and it also reaches so many people that in just adding your LinkedIn profile, like just getting out there, you'll start to get people to view your profile, what you can do, what you're looking for. There is also webinars that tell you how you should create one, and you can also Google that. LinkedIn will help you create one. There's all sorts of learning seminars and webinars that are sponsored by LinkedIn as well. It's a wealth of information, and I highly recommend definitely getting your LinkedIn profile in. Oh, and there's somebody just put out there, Harper College has a LinkedIn webinar. I've attended that a couple of times and learned something new every single time, because it's changing and they have a lot of algorithms that you can take advantage of, and they'll tell you how the instructor there at Harper is happy to help you in workshops as well as individually, and it's free.
Thank you so much for that information, Terry. The next question that I have for you is, how important is dressing to impress in a virtual job fair? Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that topic?
It's recommended that you dress as perhaps you would at the company, or one level up. So this is special, right? And you want them to know that you think that it's special to meet with company representatives. Now in tech field, maybe not, you don't need a 3-piece suit, actually probably not in any of these, unless you are interviewing for CEO or CFO role. And so if it is a technical one, just make sure that you have a collar, and you could have, I know in the tech field, they're referred to as golf shirts, but it doesn't hurt to have a jacket over that. Again, you want to dress to impress a little bit, not, but not outside of the industry that you are interviewing with. Hope that answers that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Terry. Another question that we received in the chat is, should the ATS resume be a Word doc? What would you suggest in your experience, Terry?
Word docs work perfectly fine. You can also use a text document, but I've used Word and it's takes all the formatting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Terry. And I just do want to reiterate, if any folks that are still on the call have any questions for Terry regarding virtual job fairs or how to attend them or what the proper conduct would be for them, please feel free to enter those into the chat. Now would be a prime opportunity to get those answered. Kind of as an aside here, looks like we got a question. This individual asks, at what point will we know the descriptions of the open positions available to pursue? I believe I can go ahead and answer that. You're going to want to tune in for the upcoming session that's going to be taking place on Wednesday. That's going to be kind of an informational session. And during that, employers will give an overview of the positions that they have available and any relevant information that they want to present in that regard. So please be sure to tune in for that session on Wednesday. And then subsequently, if you want to actually speak with an employer rep, you'll want to be sure to register for the event on Friday as well for those interview sessions. So if you have not yet done so, we highly, highly encourage you to register for both Wednesday and Friday as well.
I noticed a couple of font questions. This is all details that goes into Target Resume and ATS webinars. But just as a rule, Arial, Calibri, you're good with those two. I would stick with those. And fonts 11 and 12, not below 10.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Terry.
Sure.
And again, we're going to pivot to kind of an unrelated question. If you have any questions regarding state hiring, I see that we had a kind of a more detailed question, if you will, in the chat regarding that. We're actually going to have a representative of CMS who's going to be up next for their presentation, and they'll give you kind of a more in-depth, granular view of what it's like to, apply for a state job and what that CMS hiring process looks like. So please stay tuned. Someone else asked if there will be a recording of this or if it will be posted again. Yes, this session is being recorded and it will be posted on Illinois WorkNet's YouTube channel. It'll also be included on the participating employer booths. We had a question here. How do you enter a virtual job booth? Will other job seekers be there at the same time, or is it one by one? I'm assuming you're probably referencing the upcoming interview sessions that will be taking place on Friday. How that'll work is all participating employers will be there. They'll have their own individual breakout room, and then anyone that you're interested in speaking to, you'll have an opportunity to do so at that time. All employers will not be in the same virtual room, if you will. So just wanted to clarify that. And I believe Terry already addressed the font questions. So we're good to go there. Terry, it looks like we do have another question. Do you include references with resume? What is your take on that? I know it can vary.
Pretty much there no references unless they're asked, or you can put in references available if asked. But it's standard practice to not include them at this time on resumes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Terry. Kind of pivoting back, we have another question in the chat here. Will the Wednesday morning event be on YouTube as well? Yes. All these sessions that will be taking place this week for the senator will be recorded and will be on that WorkNet YouTube channel that I referenced earlier. And again, I just do want to reiterate, if you do have any questions for Terry regarding attending a virtual job fair, now would be the prime opportunity to do so. She's on here, she's a wealth of information, and if there's anything that you're seeking clarification on, feel free to ask that question and we will get it answered for you. We received a question in the chat. This individual asked, will the employers have my resume copy? I don't believe that will be the case. What you'll want to do is during those interview sessions, you'll want to be sure that you conduct follow-up with those employers. And at that point, if they request a resume, you will do so at that time. And again, if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to enter those into the chat and we'll get those answered for you. If not, we will kind of begin our transition to the navigating the state hiring process of our job seeker workshops here. Myra, just checking in with you. Are you able to unmute yourself?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
I can. Give me just one moment here. We do have what looks like to be a final question for Terry before we kind of transition into the CMS presentation. Terry, thank you, Myra. Terry, this individual asks, do resumes have to be chronological in date? Example, I have healthcare experience, but it was years ago.
There's another type of resume you can have. It's a functional resume. And you can list all of your skill sets and competencies, etc. However, I will say that once you have to upload it and send it to the employer, if it's going through an ATS type system, it will prompt you for the dates. So just have that handy. But if you're just talking to somebody at these fairs and want to just present who you are, what you can do, and what your value is, and you prefer not to have chronological, that is fine to get started with and not a bad idea.
Thank you, Terry. And kind of building off of that question, do you suggest chronological or reverse chronological order for a resume? I know that's a question that's come up before as well. Any thoughts on that topic?
Yes, your latest employment should be at the top. Your latest employment should be at the top. And again, there's lots of nuances to this. Depending on where you are in your career, you will want to list your education at the bottom. If you're 2 years out of graduating from college, you can keep that closer to the top, but anything beyond that should be at the bottom. And you do not need to show your graduation date. Again, there's other nuances to that. If you just finished a graduate degree or something like that, you'll want to you can put the date there to show that its relevancy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Terry. And again, if you do have any last minute questions, for Terry, please feel free to enter those into the chat and we'll get those answered for you before we transition into the state hiring portion of the presentation. If there are no further questions, Terry, I just want to thank you for your presentation. Thank you for sticking around and answering so many questions. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Next, we have Myra Magana with CMS. Myra is going to cover kind of navigating the state hiring process and what that looks like and what you need to keep in mind and consideration when applying for a state job. Myra, are you available to present?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. Thank you. You can begin whenever you're ready.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this great event today. I will be covering quite a bit of information. I'll be going over the process of applying for employment with the state. There will be a lot of information to take in, but don't worry about that. We do have a lot of resources that are available to help you in navigating this application process, and I'll be giving you the information for those resources as well. So you'll have state departments that will help you in navigating this process. So just take in the key points that are going to be helpful for you, but definitely I'm going to cover a variety of aspects, and the ones that apply to you, jot them down, and you will have my contact information at the end of this presentation. So after the Q&A and after the event is over, if you still have additional questions, you'll be able to reach out to me as well with any of those questions that you might have. So I'm going to turn my camera off so you all can focus on the presentation. And Daniel, next slide. So a lot of people don't realize what CMS is. They think CMS is the one doing the hiring, is CMS doing this? What role does CMS have? And what a lot of people don't realize is that CMS is a support agency for the other agencies under the jurisdiction of the governor. So we provide a lot of support and resources to the other agencies. Next. And when it comes to the hiring process, we provide a vacancy posting platform for the state agencies. So you have, sorry, I moved the mic. I saw the note on the clarity. I hope this is more clear. So one of the, with the vacancy platform, what we do is we have this one website where you can actually go to see the vacancies for a variety of state agencies. So all the agencies under the jurisdiction of the governor will actually post their vacancies on this website. So you can go to this work.illinois.gov website to see vacancies with Department of Human Services, DCFS, Department of Labor, Emergency Management, Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Public Health. So there's a very broad spectrum. There's about 45 plus agencies, and you can find their vacancies on this platform. What we also provide for the state agencies is that we centralize part of the evaluation process for them. So we do some of the initial evaluating for the state agencies when it comes to the hiring process, so that once you meet with the agency, they're not trying to see if you are qualified for the position. At that point, they already know that you're qualified for the position. They're just interviewing you to see if you're going to be the best candidate for that vacancy. We also provide resources to applicants trying to apply for these jobs, and I'll be going over those resources that will help you in navigating this application process. Next. So there are a lot of benefits of working for the state. There's definitely professional growth within the state agencies. There's room for advancement. The other benefit there is that you can actually move across agencies. So you can start in a position in one agency and promote to another position within another agency. When it comes to state employment. There's also an internal program for state employment, employees rather, called the Upward Mobility Program. And this actually helps individuals target a position and work on that path to get to that target title. And it's something that's available to all state employees internally. And also there is a tuition reimbursement component with assistance for going back to school, if depending on what's involved with the target title that you are aiming for and working with this upward mobility program. For bilingual candidates, those targeting positions that have a bilingual required skill, for those positions, there's a 5% increase in pay for the skill. There's also a benefit with the medical, dental, and vision starting day one. So you do not have to wait for your health benefits when it comes to the state. The first day you start your employment with the state, you are already covered with all of your medical benefits. There's also a pension plan with the state. So those of you thinking about retirement and what's going to happen when you're done with your career with the state, there's a pension plan associated with the employment as well. Next. There are some key points in the application process, and I'm going to elaborate on all of them. There's identifying the titles. You have to know what positions you're going to be targeting, and there's available resources to assist you in that, resources to assist you in navigating the process and knowing what to do, when to apply, what to do when you're applying. also submitting the applications. You will need to submit applications. There's different avenues of submitting them depending on the title that you're targeting. And then there's grading involved with the bargaining unit titles, and I'll be going over that as well. Right? So in identifying the titles, you can actually do this yourself. The work.illinois.gov website does have all of the vacancies that have the job descriptions, the requirements, everything you need to know for those titles. But we also have a service called Career Counseling. It's a free service that is available to all applicants. We have career counselors at each of the local assessment centers. We have counselors that focus on working with veterans. We also have counselors through the Diversity Enrichment Program to assist individuals as well. Right now, the only two options you have for career counseling are by mail, which would require you to send in your application via the post office mail to one of our offices, and you can send your application with a note stating that you're requesting career counseling by mail. You would indicate to them what your preferences are as far as counties or the type of work, or if there's a particular agency. You make all of those notations in that letter that you include with your application so that they know what to focus on as they're compiling the recommendations and information that they're going to be providing for you. And then that packet will actually be mailed back to the person requesting career counseling through the mailed back through the regular post office mail. We do also have the career counseling via email and virtual career counseling, which you can request via the career counseling email that is listed on the screen. This is also available to you on our work.illinois.gov website, so you will be able to get that email off of that website if you're not able to get it off of the slide today. So you can send an email and you can let them know that you're requesting career counseling. You will send them your application so you can attach it. It is a PDF document that you'll be able to download and save and attach to the email. And in that email, again, you'll let them know what your preferences are. You can let them know what counties you want to work in. You let them know what type of work you're seeking. You can let them know if there's an agency that you are really looking to work with. So you give them all of this information, and again, they'll take all of that into consideration along with the information that you've provided on your application to compile recommendations of titles and information regarding the steps that you'll need to take in order to apply for these positions with the state. Next. Once the application has been received, it is assigned to a career counselor, and that career counselor will review your application. So if there's any errors on your application, or if there are some areas where you want to, you need to elaborate on, they'll make sure to give you feedback on that. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that our application actually asks for a lot more detail than a normal resume would have. And so a lot of times people will fill out the application and not elaborate enough. And so that's one of the feedbacks that we tend to give individuals applying for employment that go through our career counseling. So they'll let you know, hey, you want to make sure to elaborate a little bit more detail on this aspect, or make sure you correct this item in this section. So they will let you know what you need to do with your application so you don't experience any roadblocks as you start submitting it to the vacancies. They will also identify the titles for you, and so they'll give you the job descriptions that you need for those positions. If the positions do require exams, they'll also give you the test guides associated with that. So you want to make sure to put as much detail on your application, because the more information you give them about you and your skill sets and your responsibilities, the more they'll be able to identify for you and recommend for you. And with the state, you do not have to focus on just one title. You can actually apply for multiple titles at one time. You are applying for multiple vacancies with multiple agencies, so you can apply for one position with Department of Labor and another position with Department of Human Services, or two different positions with the same particular agency. So you are not limited. A lot of the rules that typically apply to resumes in the private sector will not apply to the application process with the state. And career counseling is free. There are no fees for this, but you do need to fill out the application and put as much detail as possible and request the service so that we can provide you the guidance when it comes to the application process. Next. We also have the Successful Disabilities Program, and this we have in place to assist individuals with disabilities to give them greater access to opportunities with the state. This is also free. All of these services that I will be explaining to you today are all free. And so with the Successful Disabilities Opportunities Program, what this does is actually allows individuals to get on an additional eligibility list for the vacancies. So when vacancies open up, and they go to be filled externally, they're typically given the open competitive list, but they're also given the list of the SD candidates. So they're given both lists at once. And so you want to make sure that if this applies to you, that you're on both lists, because if they go through the SD candidate program to fill the position, you'll be on that list, and it's a smaller list to be pulled off of. But then if they go to the open competitive list, you'll also be on that list as well. To be a part of this SD program, you do have to be working with the Division of Rehab Services. And so what we need from them is just a certificate of eligibility. But they do provide a lot of other resources to applicants and to their clients, rather. So they do have a lot of other beneficial information and resources that individuals can utilize. But we do need you to be a part of that. And because we do need specific documentation from the DRS counselor in order to be part of the SD program. You do also need to submit the applications, and this will all go to the SD program coordinator, who also is the individual who schedules exams and schedules any accommodations for the exams should you need to take an exam for a position. Now, if you do need an accommodation for the exam, but you do not want to go through this program, that's totally fine as well. We do still provide accommodations, and the SD program coordinator would be the person to contact regarding any accommodations that you might need when it comes to testing. Next. We have a CMS Disability Resource Center, and they are the ones that you want to contact with any questions regarding any circumstances, any documentation regarding the SD program, regarding the Disabled Workers Program. So the assistance and the accommodations do not end at the application process. The state does provide reasonable accommodations to individuals in their employment with the state. So any questions that anyone might have regarding accommodations, the SD program, or anything related to the Disability Resource Center, we definitely encourage you to reach out to them. We are in post-COVID compliance, so we do have limited staff in the offices. So sometimes you will be able to reach them via phone. The best way to reach them would be via email. But definitely, if you want to reach them via phone or relay, you can do that as well. But because sometimes they are in the offices and sometimes they are working remotely, email would be the most sure way of contacting that department. Next. For those of you who are veterans, you do want to establish a veteran status because the state does give points and preference to veterans applying for employment. But we do need specific documentation on file when it comes to establishing your veteran status. It will be relevant to your discharge paperwork. If you are still serving, we'll need a letter indicating that you are currently serving honorably, along with other documentation. So the documentation that you will be required to provide will be contingent on the service that you were in. So it's all, it will be different for each individual. Any questions regarding documentation, can be directed to the Veterans Outreach by email. Email address that is listed on the slide. This is also on our website. So you can go to the work.illinois.gov website to find this email address as well. And it will give you more information regarding the Veterans Outreach Program. Once a veteran has established their veteran status, it does stay on file indefinitely. So once you have established it, you will not have to continue to submit your military paperwork to us. It's one and done. You put it in, you get it established. After that, it's in there indefinitely. Every time you apply, you just indicate that you're a veteran, and they'll go ahead and indicate your veteran code on the application for you. This is the state's way of saying thank you for your service and to assist and give veterans the opportunities to find civilian employment with the state agencies as well. Next. For those of you who are bilingual, the state does utilize bilingual skills in some of their positions. So typically these are positions that are serving the public, and they're typically in locations where they have public that are needing this assistance and specific languages. So not all of the agencies will have, not all of the vacancies will have bilingual options, but you will want to keep an eye out for that. So if you are fluent in a second language or third language or other languages, you want to keep an eye on the vacancies to see if you see the abbreviations for that language. When you do career counseling, you do want to make sure that you indicate to the counselors that you are fluent in other languages, and they'll make sure to indicate what titles they've recommended that utilize that language that you've indicated. So you will be evaluated for your fluency, so you do have to be fluent in that other language if you are going to be considered for a position that requires a language. So if you see a vacancy and it says opt SS or opt PO or opt etc., always scroll to the bottom. It will let you know what that language is. And if you are fluent in that language, then definitely apply. When it comes to testing, if you apply for a position that does not require a bilingual option, you can let them know when they schedule you for your exam, hey, I'm bilingual in this language. Does this position utilize this language? If it does, then they'll allow you to receive the grade for the bilingual list for that title so that you can be placed on the eligibility list for the bilingual list for that title. And so what that will allow you to do is it'll allow you to be on that list for that position should you happen to see a vacancy for that position with the bilingual option in it later on. You do not have to worry about coming into tests again to get on the bilingual list for that position. Again, remember that fluency is evaluated at the time of the interview, so you won't be evaluated on fluency at the time of testing for a position. That is done when it comes to the interview part of the process. The application that you're going to need for the bargaining unit positions, which are the majority of the positions with the state, is the CMS 100 application. It can be found on the website. If you go to work.illinois.gov and you click on any of the vacancies, they will have the link for the CMS 100 on there. So you want to click on the link and you want to save that PDF document on your computer, on a flash drive, wherever you're going to save it. Once you save it, you don't need the internet anymore. It actually gives you ample space for you to elaborate on your responsibilities. So you want to go ahead and fill it in and put as much detail as possible on that application. One of the things that people tend to do is they tend to fill it out as they would a resume, and we need additional details. For example, if you tell me that you manage a team of 5 people, I cannot assume that you had the authority to interview. I cannot assume that you had the authority to take disciplinary action, evaluate performance, create scheduling. You have to be very specific about the responsibilities that you've had. You will display your skill sets, based on the responsibilities that you had that utilize those skill sets. For example, you don't want to say, I'm proficient in PowerPoint. You want to say, I utilize PowerPoint to create presentations for such and such purpose at this frequency, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, etc. Okay, and you can use interactive media links, and also linking it to graphics, etc., etc., etc. And that would actually give a clearer picture of your proficiency than stating, I'm proficient in PowerPoint. And that is the level of detail that you want to take with this application. It does not need to be fancy. You do not need to say, when I was in this position, I was charged with the responsibility. No, we don't need that. You can say, I did this, I did that, I was responsible for this, I did the other thing. So bullet points are fine. Concise statements are important, but just make sure that you add all of the responsibilities that you had that will display the skill sets that you are trying to show and highlight in the application. The more information you provide, the better. So it's the opposite of what they tell you for a resume. More is more when it comes to our application. Next. To submit the application, you're actually going to go to our website, work.illinois.gov. You'll look for a vacancy, and you can either look for it through the featured jobs link, which you'll see a little red circle around the little screenshot, or view all jobs. You can actually do searches for jobs using keywords, using counties. So there's different ways that you can filter through the different vacancies. And the vacancies postings will look like this. So there's a sample screenshot of postings on the screen at this time. You want to click on the vacancy, and then you will scroll to the bottom to find the agency contact. Next. When you go to the bottom of the posting, you'll see the agency contact, and it will look something like this. So you'll want to make sure that you look for that. Now, the agencies are able to post their information differently. So some of them will have it very clearly accessible and viewed and formatted the way this one has. Some of the agencies will give you more specific instructions. There are some agencies that tell you that they want it in an email and they want a specific subject line in the email, etc. So you want to make sure you read through these very thoroughly so that you are sending it to the correct contact. Keep in mind that they will also have the work location. The work location is not necessarily where you are sending your application. You need to find the agency contact in the posting, and that's where you will submit your application. So, for example, this one tells you specifically to send it via email and to put the bid ID number in the subject line. Or you can send it via mail and you send it to their address. So make sure that you look through these postings. We're in the process of standardizing the format. So at this time, they will look different from each other depending on the agency that's posting it. But this is the main thing that you want to look for. Next. Some of the positions will require you to take an exam, and our testing centers are in Chicago, Champaign, Marion, Rockford, and Springfield. Testing is running very differently at this time than it did previously. Next. Testing is done by appointment only. You cannot schedule your appointment. Testing staff will call you. So the way it's working is that the agencies are letting them know when they need the exams. They're giving them the candidates that submitted applications for the vacancy, and then the test center will contact you so that you can come in and take the exam for that particular position for that vacancy. Now, there is a lag period. So you won't be they won't be calling you next week if you submitted a vacancy today for a position. So you want to make sure that you print whenever you submit an application for a vacancy. Print that posting out or save a PDF of that posting so you know who to contact with any questions. There is a delay when it comes to testing, so just keep that in mind. But they will be contacting you via the phone number that you've listed, and you will be contacted by the test center that is closest to the vacancy location. For SD testing, the SD coordinator will be the person that will be contacting candidates to schedule the exams and the accommodations for individuals that are going through that program. When you come in to take your exam, you will need to present a government-issued ID or driver's license when you are checking in for the exam. So you will need to show your driver's license or your ID, picture ID, when it comes to checking in for the exam. Most of these exams have a 90-minute time limit. There are a select few that are 2 or 3 hours long. They will let you know what the length of the exam is when they are signing you up for your exam, so you know what to prepare for. SD exams have extra time based on the accommodation, and that will be specified via the SD coordinator scheduling the exam. They are administered on a touchscreen computer, and just keep in mind everything is being sanitized. There's a limited number of people being allowed to test per day to ensure everybody's safety. So that's another reason why there is a bit of delay when it comes to scheduling with the testing, because we need to make sure that we are still in compliance with the number of people that can come in to come and take the exams, and that we are providing them a safe environment to do so. The grade notice is given to you the same day that you take the exam. So as soon as you're done with your exam, you will know how you scored on that test. Next. The grades that you will receive will be A, B, C, or fail when it comes to these exams, and they fail file for 1 year. So there is no high A, low A, B minus, B plus, any of that. It's an A, a B, a C, or a fail, and that's it, okay? Once you have your grade, it's valid for 1 year. So if you have an A, then when it comes to that vacancy, or that title rather, you don't have to worry about retaking that exam. So for example, let's say you applied for the office associate and you took the exam and you have your A, but you didn't get hired for that particular vacancy. And then 2 weeks down the line, you see another vacancy for an office associate with a different agency. You will not have to retake an exam. You can apply to that vacancy without having to retake that test. Now, if you don't have an A, then they will give the opportunities for retesting, but they are still working out how they're doing that because of the limited space and because of the needs of the grades for the position. So that's still, the kinks with that are still being worked out, but there will be opportunities to retake your exams if you don't have the A. For candidates that are part of the SD program, the grades for the SD list will be pass or fail. So if you have on the open competitive list an A, B, or C, on the SD list you will have a pass, and then the only other grade would be fail if you didn't pass the exam. Next. The other route for receiving a grade is through an evaluation of your training and experience. So the majority of titles at this time are going through this process. Some of the positions that were previously tested have been transitioned to this process as well. And so what they're going to be doing is giving you a grade based off of the information that you provide on your application. That's why it's really helpful to have a career counselor review it before you submit it for a vacancy, so that when it comes to an evaluation based on your training and experience, you don't encounter any issues regarding the information you put on your application. If it's not on your application, it doesn't exist. If they are grading your application, they're not going to call you and ask you, hey, when you supervise these 5 people, did you also evaluate performance? They're not going to say, hey, you listed that you did, you had various clerical duties. Can you let me know what those were? None of that happens when it comes to the evaluation process, when it comes to grading. So you have to make sure to be very thorough and very detailed on your application so that you are able to be given credit for the responsibilities and the skill sets that you have. It's all based off of what you put on your app. So your education, the coursework, your certifications, when it comes to your work and employment, your duties, your responsibilities, all of that is taken into account. But keep in mind the requirements of the position. If the position says it requires a specific degree, you have to have that specific degree. If the position does not state a specific degree or says 4 years of college or the equivalent, then they can substitute your education for your experience. And so those are some of the nuances that the career counselor will already take into account when it comes to recommending the titles for you. The grade notices are sent to you through the mail. So you will receive it in your regular post office mail once they are given to the individuals and put in the system. Next. The grades for these are also A, B, C, or fail. And the grades for these are also valid for 1 year. For these, you can appeal your grade. So if you get a grade back and it is not an A, you can actually appeal your grade, and at the bottom of your grade notice, it will tell you how to appeal, and you can let them know, I don't agree with this. I believe I should have received an A. These are the reasons why I think I should have received an A. These are the qualifications that I have that are relevant to this position. Here's a copy of my transcripts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that can take place during the appeal process, okay? And so what you're going to want to make sure to do at that point is get all of your tools ready to support your argument for why you get the A, and give them everything that will be helpful in re-evaluating your grade. You can also request that they contact you and explain to you why you did not get the A. What some people don't realize is that sometimes not adding enough detail will prevent you from qualifying for the position, because they cannot give you credit for what is not there. Or a mistake on the application barred you from being able to get credit for a particular section, and then you want to make sure that you want have somebody look at your application so that there are no mistakes on that application. So if you forget to put your credit hours in your education, then that may impede you from giving you the credit for the education. So they're very thorough when they're reviewing your app, and so you need to be very thorough when completing it. Next. There is also a new online process. It was piloted all last year with a couple of positions, and now they've rolled it out completely. So this process is for the merit comp positions. So these are the positions that are not going through the bargaining unit, not the union titles. And so for anything that you see on the website that does not state that it is a bargaining unit position, you will be able to submit your application directly online. Or rather, you'll be able to apply online. So you will be able to click on the title and look for the apply link and apply directly. You will not need to submit a CMS 100. You will not have any testing for these positions, and you will utilize an online candidate profile that you will complete through the new website. Next. So you'll need to create an account, which will ask you for your username, last name, all of that stuff to create it. It'll look something like this. Next. And you'll have all of these fields that you can put in all of your information. So you'll be able to upload a resume. You'll be able to put in your information regarding your education, information regarding your previous employment. It'll give you a list of the titles that you've applied for online. Geographic mobility is where you're willing to work. You'll have a place for your certifications and licenses. So you'll be able to put all that information that would have gone in a CMS 100 online, okay? And so this is where it will pull from when you apply online for the merit comp positions. The merit comp positions are positions that are not part of the union, not part of the bargaining unit, and so what they will be will be more specialized positions, management level positions, and positions that will fall outside of the bargaining unit titles. So you will see a mixture of the bargaining unit and non-bargaining unit titles on the web. So you want to make sure to keep an eye out for the statement that says this is a bargaining unit title. If it says this is a bargaining unit title, you will go through the CMS 100 and the process that I explained just before this. If it does not say this is a bargaining unit title, then you will apply online and look for the apply button, and it will pull from your profile that you've created. So there are two processes online right now. The bargaining unit titles, again, that will go through the CMS 100 application. You send it to the agency contact via mail or email, and you'll get a grade based off of your training and experience, and then that will set you up for the interview process. For the merit comp positions, you'll go through the online link, submit all of your information through there, and your evaluation will be based on an online submission, and that will set you up for the interview process. So there's two different processes running concurrently for the two different categories of positions with the state. Next. You are able to create job alerts on our website. So if you go on the website, once you've created your account, you can go to options, and then you will see a link for job alerts, and then click on create new job alert, and then you will be able to set up alerts where you can get emails anytime vacancies open up based on the specifications that you've indicated. Next. You'll be able to set up alerts based on titles for a specific title, based on specific keywords, based on specific counties, based off of agencies, based off of job functions. So these are all the different fields that you can utilize to search for titles to create job alerts. And so you'll notice that right under that big blue rectangle, it has a little create alert. So once you're doing the searches for positions, you can also create the alerts while you're doing the searches for the titles in the vacancy section as well. So let's say a position opens up for, office associate, but that vacancy is in, Marion County, and you're looking for something in, Iroquois County. You can create a job alert for the office associate in Iroquois County, and if and when that position opens up on the website as a vacancy, you'll receive an email letting you know, hey, there's a vacancy for this position with these specifications. And you're allowed to create multiple alerts for multiple vacancies. And you can select the frequency of how frequently you want it to check and let you know. So the example on the screen says, send me alerts every 7 days. But you can change the frequency of how often you want those alerts to go. Typically, postings are up for 10 days. So once a posting goes up, it will usually be up for 10 days before it comes down. So you want to go based off of that to indicate what would be the frequency that would be most beneficial to you. Next. So some of the things that you want to remember, the job title information, the applications, the postings, those are all on the website. Career counseling is available through the local assessment centers via mail, via email, this email here. And I will post all of these emails in the links, email links in the chat as well. So you'll be able to copy them as well. So the CMS Disability Resource Center can be reached at the CMS Disability Res Center at illinois.gov email address. And the Veterans Outreach Program also has an email where you can reach them as well. I will, again, be posting all of these email addresses in the chat, so you will be able to access them and copy them from there as well. There are many benefits to working for the state, so you want to definitely get started with that process as soon as possible. Again, you start day one, your benefits start day one. There's room for advancement, room for growth. So, you come in at one level and you'll be able to move up from that level as well. Appointments for testing, keep in mind that will be done by the schedule, by the test center staff, and that there is a delay between you applying for that title and you being scheduled for the exam. The best grade you can get for any of these positions that require a test or a grade based off of training and experience is an A. And for the SD program, it would be the passing grade. Your grade is valid for 1 year from the date that it was issued. So keep that in mind. You do not have to retest or reevaluate once you have that A for an entire year. You can just keep an eye out for those postings, set up those alerts so that you can apply when they open up. Always keep an eye on the work.illinois.gov website for vacancy updates. We just launched this new website, so there will be some updates to the website as we are working through some of the kinks and as we see that there are certain needs for certain information. So definitely get familiar with the website. Take advantage of the free career counseling and to help you navigate this program, this process rather, and take advantage of any of the other resources that we have available to applicants who are interested in applying for employment with the state. And I believe that wraps it up for, there's one more slide next. CMS is on LinkedIn. Keep in mind that a lot of the agencies are now going to the social media platforms to put their information. CMS itself does have a LinkedIn where you can find information about CMS, free webinars, informational information, professional development type information about vacancies. So there's a lot of information that CMS is providing via their LinkedIn page. So you do want to definitely come in and check them out. But also with the other state agencies, they do also have social media platforms. Some of them have Facebooks, some of them have LinkedIn, some of them have multiples. So definitely keep an eye out for that to get more familiar with the state agencies, what they're doing, what their vacancies are. And then that will also help you when it comes to the application process and also help identifying where you want to go and what you want to target with the state. And that concludes my portion of today's presentation. My contact information is at the bottom of the screen right there. Feel free to reach out to me. It does have my phone number, but again, remember we are working remotely. So the best way to reach me would be via email. And then that way I can set up a WebEx call if you do need to speak to me, or a video call if you want to meet with me virtually with regards to any questions that you might have. So definitely I would recommend the best way to reach me is shoot me an email. If you have any questions regarding the presentation today or the application process, I'd be able to assist. And again, we do have the career counseling via mail and email and virtual available as well. So I will be posting all of those email addresses in the chat so that you all can just copy them from there.
Thank you so much for that thorough, detailed, and granular presentation, Myra. At this point, what we'll go ahead and do is kind of transition into the Q&A session for this specific portion of the presentation. Looks like we did get quite a few questions in the chat. So Myra, will you be available to stick around and answer some of those?
I will, and I did want to post the email address. This is what I will do is after we're done with the questions, I'll post it all on the chat. That way it doesn't get lost in case more questions come in.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Myra.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead here and just kind of pivot to the chat section, and I'll just pose the questions that were answered in the chat directly. And before we delve into that, again, I just do want to reiterate, as I have with our prior presenters, if you do have any questions for Myra, regarding employment with the state of Illinois or any CMS specific questions, please feel free to enter those into the chat and we will get those answered for you. First question that I have for you, Myra. This individual asks, regarding employment with the state of Illinois, I've applied a few times and nothing. Is career counseling the route I should take?
I definitely encourage anyone who has not gone through the career counseling to utilize that. Sometimes people will focus on specific positions, not realizing that there are other positions that they can target that are related to the field that they are seeking. So when it comes to the positions, you're at the mercy of when it opens up. But if you're looking for a specific type of work, there might be other positions that are related that will help you get your foot in the door. So anyone who's not sure what titles to target or who has applied but is, has been focusing on specific areas and maybe open to expanding, definitely go through the career counseling route.
Fantastic. Thank you, Myra. The next question that I have for you, this individual asks, is it appropriate to include extracurricular or professional development activities on the application?
You want to include whatever is relevant to your skill sets, and what they're looking for is your experience. So what I would recommend is if they are building your experience and showing that you are exercising that experience in that, then yes. One thing that a lot of people don't put on there is their volunteer work. We actually had a candidate come in and they were volunteering as an accountant in their local community center. That's still experience because that's still, although they were not getting compensated for it, they were still exercising their experience there. So when it comes to anything that is outside a typical position, or job experience, you want to make sure to focus on what's going to highlight the skill sets that you're displaying and that show that you've utilized those.
Awesome. Thank you, Myra. The next question that I have for you is this individual asks, are you aware whether any state of Illinois departments provide sponsorship for H-1B visa status? If yes, can you
They do not
provide the name? Okay.
Yeah, so they do not. There's actually a statement about that on the website.
Fantastic. Thank you, Myra.
Unfortunately, we do not.
The next question that I have for you is more of just an informational request. This individual asks, can you put the disability email in the chat? I don't know if you have the ability to do so right now or not. But,
I'm actually going to put all of them. So the disability, the veteran, the career counseling, all of that will be in the chat. Let me do that right now, and then I'll put it again later just in case they get buried.
Okay, thank you, Myra.
Nope.
While you're doing that, I do have some additional questions. Are you still available to answer, or do you want to focus on putting those links in the chat?
And I think they're in.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Myra. The next question that I have for you, this individual asks, how far back should we go on the CMS 100, or does it depend on the specific agency? Also, if you list your jobs starting with the most recent, you have to redo the entire application to insert a new job. I don't know if you can elaborate on any of that.
So the CMS 100 can be a little bit cumbersome. You do want to go as far back as you feel is relevant, as far as back as you want to display your skill sets. So we don't limit you on when if you had a position where you were doing management, for example, and it was 15 years ago, you want to go that far back to show that, unless you've had heavy management in the last 5 to 10 years. So I think it depends on what you want to display. The more information you provide, the better. The exception to that would be veterans applying for positions that are specific to veterans. There are positions that are only available to veterans, and for those, they do have to put their military experience, and it has to be broken down by the changes in ranks. So for them, they're going to need additional pages, possibly, depending on how long ago their military experience was. What you are able to do is download the, 2 copies of the application. If one of them does not give you enough space, you can actually, on that second file, continue. And then when you submit the application, you can scan it. So you can print out those extra pages, put them in and scan it. Because you have to sign the application anyways. So that way you print those extra pages, you put them in the order that they need to be, and then scan it and submit it that way. That would be the easiest thing that I recommend for you to do, because each page is a job. So they've devoted 1 page per job. So you'll be able to put those pages in the order that is the right chronological order for you to submit. You do want to start with your most recent employment first, and then work your way back through your work history.
Awesome. Thank you for that information, Myra. The next question that I have for you, this individual asked, it's their first job applying with the state of Illinois. What grade job should they be applying for?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, I can repeat the question for you. So this individual is stating that it's their first time applying for a job with the state, and they are specifically asking what grade jobs they should be applying for. What would you suggest, Myra?
I think it depends on your experience. I would need to see what your experience is like. One thing that a lot of people do is they tend to pigeonhole themselves. So somebody might say, well, I've only done this. Well, there's a variety of entry-level positions at the state. So you may be able to target, 5 different types of positions. And that's where the career counselor really does help out a lot. So especially for those of you who this is your first time being exposed to this, definitely go through the career counseling route, because in that way they'll be able to, let you know what you need to focus on, and it'll help filter through all the extra information that you're going to be receiving as you're going to be on the website.
Fantastic. Thank you for that information, Myra. Got another question. This individual says, after receiving an A grade for a position, how long does it take to hear back from the agency?
It depends on where they are in the process. So the grading is done once you receive the grade that puts you on the eligibility list. And so after that, then the agency has to go through a bunch of red tape and documentation. So that varies. And so then what I recommend for people to do is once you have that, if you have the contact information, the agency contact, you can definitely reach out to them and say, hey, I was just wondering what's the timeline on this. When it comes to the merit comp positions, they have a general, timeline of what they're anticipating, what might be the length of time for each of the steps. But when it comes to the bargaining unit, because there's a few extra steps that the agencies need to take for transparency and accountability, that has been preset already by the bargaining agreement, it takes a little bit longer. And the contact is done by mail, so that delays it a little bit more too.
Thank you for that, Myra. Next question that I have for you is, if you've seen a counselor before, can you go through a counselor again after the 1-year period when the application is on file expires?
Well, you can let the counselor know. If you've seen a counselor, you can actually reach back to that counselor that you've met with and say, hey, the year has passed. This has been my experience. Can you please assist me with what other titles I might want to target outside of what has already been targeted. And there are a couple of changes with the website too. So you can definitely let them know, hey, I've heard that there's been some changes. Can you please give me some insight on that? So if you've met with a counselor, you can definitely reach back out to that counselor, and they should be able to answer any questions that you have. They won't go through re-explaining the process all over again, because that the grading process for the bargaining unit hasn't changed. But when it comes to the merit comp, they may give you additional details with regards to the new steps. So it's always good to touch base with your counselor and say, hey, you know, has anything changed? These are the titles that I applied for. Is there anything else that I can try again, etc. And then the conversation can proceed from there.
Thank you, Myra. The next question that I have for you, this individual asks, are there agencies that do not post positions on your website? If so, is there a way to easily find those agencies so we can check their job postings?
So the agencies that don't go through this process are the agencies that are not under the jurisdiction of the governor. So that would be Tollway, the state universities, the treasurer's office, the attorney general. There's one more. Tollway. Secretary of State. And for each of those, they will have their vacancy information on their websites.
Awesome. Thank you for that information, Myra.
Mm-hmm.
The next question that I have for you, this individual asks, what if a U.S. citizen has those education credit hours from overseas? Is it still valid?
It is. You are able to get an evaluation of your educational completion in another country. We actually have information. Definitely contact a career counselor. They can send you the information for the agencies that conduct these evaluations. And then that will actually be helpful not only for us, but as you're applying in the private sector as well, because now you have an official document that states you have the equivalent to this degree in this field, with this many credit hours, etc. So there's different ones that they do. There's the one where they do the evaluation and they just give you the general statement that says you have the equivalent of a bachelor's degree in psychology or a master's degree in such and such field. And then they also have the extensive one where they actually go through your transcripts and give you the equivalent in the credits. And so that is really helpful for us because our application asks for the credit hours in the education field. And then for applying for jobs with anyone else, it'll be helpful too because now you have the sufficient documentation. It is not free. There are a few different agencies that do it. We can give you the list of the ones, and then you can definitely reach out to them to find out what the pricing is and which one will be better for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Myra. I do have another question for you. This individual asks, for the new online app, should we use a job counselor? What would you suggest?
Yes, because then they can let you know what titles to target on the online app.
Awesome. Thank you, Myra. The next question that I have for you, this individual asks, is there a resource for test preparation?
So the career counselor will send you the test guides. If you're looking for test guides, typically when you are scheduled for an exam, you can ask for more information about that. There, in the old website, there was a whole section for them. With the new website, there's still some things that they're loading onto it. So the links to the test guide aren't on there yet, but you can definitely reach out to the test centers or reach out to career counselors to assist with obtaining test guides for a specific position that you're going to be testing for.
Awesome. Thank you, Myra. And I do have another question here. This individual asks if there is a job you feel you can be applicable for, but it is not stated specifically the title, can you still apply for that position? Hopefully that's clear enough.
I'm going to take a stab at this answer. I think I understood what they're asking. If you meet the requirements of the position, then apply. Always look through the requirements. If it does not state a specific degree, then there's room for you to utilize your experience and leverage that. So if it's not stating a specific degree that you don't have, apply. Okay? So if it says it requires a degree in psychology and your degree's in business, don't apply. Okay? But if it requires a degree in psychology or the 4 years of equivalent experience, and you have the equivalent experience, then you can apply. I would recommend applying. So read through the requirements thoroughly before applying. If it has a hard requirement that you do not meet, you know, I cannot tell you don't apply. I can't stop you from applying, but the chances are that, you know, it may not be the results that you're looking for.
Thank you for clarification on that, Myra. I think we have probably time for about one more question. This individual asks, I am thinking of starting classes in a couple of weeks. Should I put that as my current job skills, or is that not considered a job? What do you think as far as education in place of experience?
You can just indicate student for your current work experience. If you don't have any previous work experience, then you would just indicate on that one page, you know, currently I'm a student, I'm not employed. And it's just further clarification. It's not going to hurt you, especially if you're targeting the appropriate title.
Awesome. Thank you for that response, Myra. And with that, I believe time will force us to go ahead and conclude today's job seeker workshop session. Myra, thank you so much for providing such, again, a thorough, detailed, and in-depth review for the folks who are on the call today. I know there was tons of really valuable information and resources that you covered, so thank you for taking the time today to do so. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. I just do also want to state, absolutely. I do also want to state, again, Myra's contact information is up on the slide, as you can see. If there's any sort of questions or anything that you need further clarification on, as she stated, I believe she would be your point of contact. So make sure you get her email address there and her phone number. Follow back up with her regarding any sort of questions that you have regarding employment with the state of Illinois, or any, again, CMS specific questions that you have regarding the application process. I don't believe the senator is on the call still to be able to kind of make some concluding remarks. So again, as he stated in his kind of introductory statements, the purpose of this series in particular is supposed to kind of be a wholesome approach. Today's session, again, was intended to provide kind of an introductory level, workshops for job seekers who may not be used to navigating the virtual space. Our next session on Wednesday will be an informational session with employers, and during that session, you'll get more of that in-depth information regarding open job positions that are available with those employers. You'll be able to ask questions. We'll also have some more presentations over local resources that are available to job seekers, and then also resources that are available online through Illinois WorkNet and the Get Hired Illinois platform. And then last but not least, our final session on Friday will be an opportunity for job seekers to meet directly with participating employer reps. So again, that was kind of the approach here, intended to be wholesome, intended to prepare you for those final sessions that we'll have. Again, I want to thank everyone who attended today, both job seeker and presenter alike. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we hope that you will register for Wednesday and Friday's session. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Daniel. I reposted the email address down there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Myra.
Bye.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you, everyone.